They weren't supposed to land. Earth had been sealed under Directive 7 for 300 rotations of the galactic core. No contact, no interference, no exceptions. Surveillance was tolerated, even encouraged. Dozens of quiet satellites hung in the exosphere, all blinking data into the void. But boots on soil? Forbidden. It was a death world, red-zoned, hostile, and unstable. Yet they came anyway. The Thyrax's vessel Trinexus slipped past the orbital warning mesh, with cloaking active and transponders silenced. Captain Velrun stood at the helm, flanked by Analyst Gore and Systems Engineer Sila, his breath shallow with anticipation. He wasn't a fool. He had read the historical files. Earth burned itself twice before achieving stable fusion. Its dominant species had a documented capacity for mass extinction, self or otherwise. But curiosity overruled caution. The data they could collect in one surface sweep could redefine the biological sciences. That was the gamble. That was the thrill. No interference. No signals. Just a passive landing, sample extraction, and immediate exfil, he had told the crew during descent. The ship was a prototype, shielded and sensor-resistant, built for fast incursion work in high-risk zones. They had 2 planetary rotations to complete their mission and lift off before patrol sweeps returned. As they descended through the stratosphere, the first anomaly registered. Atmospheric pressure fluctuated unnaturally, then stabilized. The onboard systems flagged the event as unmodeled turbulence, and Sila recalibrated. Then came the electrical interference. EM levels spiked in irregular pulses. Not quite natural, but not overtly artificial either. Something in the ionosphere was responding to them. When they dropped below cloud cover, they saw nothing but endless green. The Amazon basin, still wild, still untamed. Touchdown occurred with minimal impact. The Trinexus anchored itself on the river's edge, hidden beneath the canopy. Outside, humidity condensed like a liquid wall. Flora screamed ultraviolet. Wildlife moved in flashes, too fast for standard identification. The air, chemically analyzed, was alive. Not just rich in oxygen, but carrying microbial traces that adapted mid-scan. Analyst Gore ran multiple cycles. These cells are mutating to counter sterilization procedures, he noted flatly. We've only been here 12 minutes. Velrun ordered full environmental lockdown. Suits stayed sealed. Mechanical probes deployed. Within an hour, the data streams became chaotic. The ship's local net destabilized. External visuals went black, then returned in bursts of static. Auto repair systems activated preemptively, indicating heat stress in several key modules. The probes failed to return. 2 had gone into the underbrush to collect plant samples. 1 was surveying the river's edge. All disappeared from telemetry. Before they could launch replacements, something unexpected occurred. A human appeared. No fanfare, no weapons, no threat display. A lone figure on the riverbank, perhaps 100 paces from the ship. It wore civilian garments, carried no gear except what seemed to be a hovering camera drone. It didn't speak. It didn't run. It merely looked directly at the Trinexus, lifted one hand in acknowledgement, then disappeared into the foliage. The crew's first reaction was confusion. The location was unregistered, devoid of settlements. Human databases listed this region as uninhabited, yet the subject had made eye contact with an optical sensor embedded in the hull surface. Analyst Gore confirmed it. The gaze was intentional. Later that cycle, a second anomaly emerged. The jungle had moved, not metaphorically, geographically. Terrain mapping showed trees and rivers had subtly shifted positions. GPS coordinates now looped inconsistently. The ship's onboard AI flagged multiple memory mismatches. Sila manually corrected for drift. It didn't help. Earth isn't just reacting, she said, voice tight. It's adapting to us. By the end of the first planetary night, the ship had suffered localized system degradation. Shielding degraded by 8%. Atmospheric regulators showed condensation with molecular signatures inconsistent with initial scans. A fungal compound, unknown and unclassified, had penetrated a sealed storage bay. Within 2 hours, it had rewritten its own spore genome, adapting to ultraviolet sterilizers. Gore captured a sample. The compound neutralized itself under observation. Nothing left to study. Security Officer Drell, the only member with combat training, patrolled in exosuit. He returned from one sweep, visibly disturbed. Found footprints, he said. Not human, not Thyraxis. Bipedal, heavy, but the weight pattern is wrong. Centered under the arch, like something pretending to be humanoid. Velrun reviewed the imagery. The prints existed for 5 frames, then vanished. No entry, no exit, just impressions in the mud, and nothing else. At dawn, the first storm hit. It formed above the ship within 20 minutes, spiraling with a velocity that didn't match thermal gradients. Lightning struck twice on the same coordinates. Statistically impossible. EM bursts cascaded through the ship's shield array. Silas screamed as her console sparked and went dead. Systems flickered. Auto-stabilizers failed. The ship shuddered. Then everything went quiet. When power resumed, they were no longer alone. Projected onto the central view screen was a message, not audio, not a known signal format, just static that resolved into perfect Thyraxis dialect. You were warned. You broke the accord. Now you stay. Gore stared at the screen. That's not a translation. That's native dialectic formatting. From Homeworld. Velrun remained silent. By mid-morning, the jungle pressed closer. The perimeter sensors failed to register movement, but the foliage now touched the ship's lower hull. Vines, previously inert, now responded proximity, contracting or expanding depending on crew motion. Automated defense lasers failed to lock targets. They registered nothing alive. A motion alert triggered in the command deck. 4 the ship's exterior hatches opened simultaneously. No breach. No override. The doors responded as if to internal commands, though none had been issued. Drell sealed them manually and locked out AI permissions. Sila confirmed security firmware was now partially rewritten. Not erased, rewritten. New code fragments bore human syntax. No known Earth signal could have done this, she whispered. Their language structure isn't this efficient. Gore disagreed. They've been studying us longer than we've been studying them. The crew attempted launch procedures. Main thrusters failed. Gravity vectors fluctuated. Artificial horizon drifted by 2 degrees. Calculations became nonsensical. External temperature dropped, then spiked, cycling too quickly to be natural. Fuel injectors jammed. Internal gravity ceased for 6 seconds. All crew reported nausea. Instruments registered it as spatial interference. Gore was the first to speak after the wall. Replace a hatch. We've lost containment integrity on more than just systems. This place is adjusting us. Velrun stood in silence. Drell tried to force the door open, but there was no mechanism, just hull where an entry point had been. Silas scanned the material. It was the same molecular composition as the outer plates, but slightly denser, almost as if the ship had grown new skin. Inside the ship, systems continued to behave erratically. Data logs began rewriting themselves. Files duplicated, vanished, or mutated. The AI subroutines that handle navigation began speaking in riddles, using voice patterns from long-deceased crew. The ship's layout subtly shifted. Hallways grew longer, angles bent impossibly. Gore mapped the path to the medbay. But by the time he arrived, the door was facing the wrong direction. He tried again, only to find himself back at his bunk. Velrun initiated the distress beacon. The command failed. The system responded. Protocol locked. Await outcome. It had never said that before. Then came the dreams. Each crew member experienced vivid, tangible dreams that didn't feel like dreams. Gore found himself sitting in a cold metal room with walls made of shifting equations, across from a human child who kept reciting Thyraxis military history. Drell was hunted through a ruined city where gravity flipped without warning, chased by shadows that knew his memories. Sila watched the stars fall from the sky one by one, until only Earth remained, pulsing like a heart. They awoke at the same moment. The internal clocks had stopped. No one could confirm how long they'd been unconscious. Velrun ordered them to split up and map the interior. If the ship was alive, or being controlled, they needed to know how much was still theirs. Gore took the aft sector. Sila moved to engineering. Drell stayed near the command deck. Gore never returned. His last transmission was corrupted, but some words were clear. Found an opening, not mechanical. It looked like light moving wrong. I think it saw me. Sila rerouted internal cameras. Nothing showed. The sector appeared untouched. But Gore was gone. Drell wanted to arm a failsafe. The ship carried a singularity core meant to self-collapse in emergencies. It would destroy everything in a 1-kilometer radius. Vel Run considered it. Sila argued against it. We don't understand what we're inside. We don't know if it will work or if it will just make it stronger. Then the lights changed. Not a flicker or dimming, just color. The internal luminescence shifted from standard blue-white to a low amber, then deep crimson. Not threatening, exactly, just unnatural. The temperature rose by 2 degrees. A voice came over the internal speaker. It spoke into Raxus first, then Unilon, then pure binary, then a language none of them recognized. It was flat, unemotional. You were told not to come. Now you will understand why. Then silence. Vel Run began to suspect the truth. This wasn't contact. This wasn't retaliation. This was conditioning. Earth was not merely responding to their presence. It was testing them. Drell retrieved a portable drill and cut into one of the ship's side panels. Beneath the outer hull, there was something that shouldn't have been there. Carbon mesh interwoven with organic filaments, pulsing slightly. It responded to his drill by sprouting tendrils. He recoiled, and the strands retracted instantly, vanishing into the wall. Sila cross-checked construction logs. None of that material was part of the Trinexus. Whatever it was, it had integrated into the ship since landing. Later, when Drell attempted to sleep, he awoke to find a message etched into the wall beside him. 6 symbols in no known language. When he touched them, he heard a voice inside his mind, Gore's voice, screaming. Then silence. The jungle outside remained static, but the stars shifted. When Sila ran star maps, Earth's position in the galaxy had changed. The solar system's orbital paths were incorrect. According to galactic standard, they were no longer in known space. That should have been impossible. Vel Run attempted to perform a hard reboot of the ship's AI. The system replied with a single word, observed. Drell tried to contact their backup vessel, the Yethrin, which was parked in low orbit and held in silent standby. No response. He switched to an encrypted frequency, hardwired into the prototype fleet. This one succeeded. But the reply was not from the Yethrin. It was from the human man they had seen on the riverbank. His voice came through clearly. The other ship is gone. You are alone now. Protocol is not just a rule, it's protection. You didn't break a boundary. You unsealed something. Then the frequency died. Sila managed to recover fragments of long-term sensor logs. One of them showed Earth's magnetic field twisting in a toroidal formation, then snapping back. Another displayed a second image of the Trinexus, captured from an external angle that shouldn't exist. The perspective was from 3 meters above the ship, looking down. There were no drones outside. They realized then something else was recording them. Vel Run made the decision to attempt surface extraction again. Staying inside the ship was no longer safe. The ship was no longer theirs. The walls responded to thought. Lights flickered in response to fear. Sound activated in sync with conversation. They weren't being hunted. They were being studied. They packed gear, sealed suits, and exited through a manually forced breach in the outer wall. The jungle greeted them with silence. The thick canopy had grown denser. Their last visual point, the river, was no longer visible. They walked for hours, relying on internal mapping. The terrain looped. Compass readings reversed. They passed the same tree 6 times. Drell marked it manually, carving into the bark with a laser. The next time they passed it, the mark was gone. Sila suggested closing their eyes and walking blindly, following a signal beacon she dropped behind them. After 2 kilometers, they opened their eyes again. They were back at the ship. The hull now looked older, worn, rusted, but it had only been 2 days. Time drift intensified. The sun did not move. The air thinned, then thickened. Drell removed his helmet, breathed. Nothing harmful. In fact, he felt stronger, more focused. But that night, he stopped speaking. He sat upright for 6 hours, unmoving, eyes wide, staring at the jungle. When Velruin confronted him, Drell looked at him and said, "They want you to ask why." That was all. He vanished the next night. There was no sound, no struggle. Sila and Velruin had been speaking in whispers about initiating a last-ditch signal pulse, using raw gamma spikes to alert deep-range patrols. When Drell, sitting beside them, simply wasn't there anymore. His boots remained. Sila screamed for the first time since landing. They returned to the ship, or what was left of it,